Could we actually still be getting a new Pokemon game in 2024? I know that might sound crazy, considering they just announced Pokemon Legends ZA for 2025, but hear me out. Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games. Of course, if you are new here and you enjoy Nintendo Switch speculation theories discussions, I would appreciate you subscribing. But without further ado, I do want to talk about this idea that there might be another Pokemon game still releasing in 2024. And I want to say before we really get into it, I don't necessarily want this. I mean, I'm going to buy any Pokemon game that comes out. I'm excited at the thought of a new Unova remake or a Johto remake. But when they announced that Legends ZA was coming out in 2025, my gut reaction was, oh, great, they're going to take more time. They're going to take 2 years off for the very first time. I'm fine with that. The reason I'm mentioning this is because I'm fine with no game releasing this year, but I do actually want to talk about and theorize that maybe we are going to get another one. I'm not trying to set anybody up for disappointment if this doesn't happen, because I'm personally fine with it, but also I would be excited if they announce one, obviously. So there are a couple different reasons I think we might end up seeing something new from Pokemon this year that just wasn't announced in the Pokemon Presents yesterday for some reason or another, and we can get into why. Now, up until this point, if you haven't been following, everything seemed to be pointing towards a Unova remake or maybe a Johto remake. I know a lot of people thought that Unova was too soon. It was too soon for a Unova remake after Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, which I would say is fair, but people seem to really forget that Let's Go is a remake. People always say, oh, there was 7 years between Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire and BDSP, but that's not really fair to say when we got a Kanto remake in between them, right in the middle. So we do get a remake every 3 or 4 years or so, and 2024 lines up with that pattern of getting a remake every 3 or 4 years. And just following the fact that the last remake we got was Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, so a Diamond and Pearl remake, it would make sense that either Unova would be next, because that is the next generation after Diamond and Pearl, or a Johto remake, because it has been the longest amount of time since we have been to Johto, because Heart Gold and Soul Silver came out in 2009 in Japan, Black and White came out in 2010. So it seemed very likely that leading into this Pokemon Presents, this Pokemon Day 2024, we would be getting the announcement of a remake of at least one of those games. A lot of people thought maybe we would get a remake of Black and White and then a Legends Johto game. Basically, a lot of people thought there would be both generations represented here, both regions would be represented in this Pokemon Presents. And we didn't really see either of them? Kind of? Johto in particular I find very peculiar, because if you watched the full Pokemon Presents with all of the mobile games and their updates, there was a lot of Johto teasing, or at least just Johto representation in this Pokemon Presents. I thought for sure that they were leading up to a Johto announcement, because in the opening we see the unknown, I believe it spells out like Pokemon Presents 2024 or something along those lines. So they have this really nice CGI budget for these unknown. They added the legendary dogs from Johto to Pokemon Sleep, which that seems kind of random. They're adding Silver from Gold and Silver to Pokemon Masters EX, so another Gold and Silver trainer being added to that in this Pokemon Presents, which already had the Pokemon Sleep stuff. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe at one point they had Gold and Silver music playing in the background of this presentation. The point is, for some reason, there was a lot of Johto stuff in this Pokemon Presents, which led up to the final announcement being Pokemon Legends ZA, and even before that trailer started, they had this little CGI animation of Pikachu and the unknown, and a lot of people at first thought it spelled out see you, and then there's a question mark, which feels like a little tease. I think some people have kind of come to the conclusion that maybe this new or old version of Kalos in this game could be called Soyu, the Soyu region. I've seen a lot of people kind of throwing that idea around, which could be, because in Pokemon Legends Arceus, Sinnoh was called Hisui, so we could be seeing a situation where maybe in this Legends game, Kalos is called Soyu, but the tease was very weird, especially with that question mark unknown at the very end. We also had the Chinese Pokemon leaker, it kind of goes by the Riddler, or KHU Ku. They had been teasing something Unova related, or possibly a mix of Unova and Johto over the past couple of months now. I think a lot of people are maybe thinking that, maybe the Indigo Disc was all they were ever planning for Unova. I won't get into too many spoilers, but Indigo Disc could almost serve as a Legends Unova. I don't like that idea personally, because I think that's very disappointing to kind of just put Unova in a DLC when I think that region deserves more love and care in a full game. But maybe all of the hints over the past couple of years, Ingo and Legends Arceus, right? Maybe that was all just leading up to the Indigo Disc. I'm not sure if I buy that. We also had a tweet from our very own Puro, the infamous Nintendo Direct leaker, who tweeted out on February 25th, "I don't know anything about Pokemon Presents. While heard of an outsourced Unova-related game, the info was from last year, so it may turn out to be inaccurate." So even in that tweet, they sounded unsure, right? And they even said, like, don't report this. It's not a leak. It's just kind of like what I had heard. It's not, concrete like all of the other leaks that Puro has done over the past year. But they had heard that there was a outsourced Unova game, and a lot of people were expecting a Ilka-developed Unova game, a black and white remake from Ilka. So we have all of these teases from Pokemon Company itself for Johto, and even like I said, Ingo in Legends Arceus, potentially suggesting a black and white remake. We have this information from Puro that they had heard there was a Unova game being outsourced to another developer. We have the Chinese Pokemon Riddler Q kind of teasing Unova or Johto or both. Even in the Pokemon Presents, we have all of these Johto things being added to the mobile games. Big brain theory time. I think there might still be a game releasing in 2024. I know that sounds crazy. It's just worth knowing that the Pokemon Company has never gone more than 2 full calendar years without releasing a Pokemon game. So because of that, I frankly find it very suspicious that there isn't going to be a new Pokemon game this year, even with the negative reception to Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and Scarlet and Violet. Now, we have heard that maybe the Pokemon Company is taking that feedback very seriously. I do believe they put out a press statement like saying, hey, we're taking this feedback seriously, so maybe that's why they're doing that. But given that it's already been almost 3 years since Ilka shipped BDSP, I feel like they could have had a remake of Black and White ready, or maybe a remake of Gold and Silver. Especially when you look at the greater Nintendo Switch lineup for 2024, if the rumors are true and the Switch 2 was intended to be released this year but got delayed to March 2025, surely Nintendo has some sort of software plan in place for what they will release this holiday season. And if there was never a Pokemon game even slated for 2024 internally, that just feels kind of weird. That would have been such a major reason to do everything in their power to not push the Switch to next year, because what else are they going to release this year? I mean, Pokemon, I think, was the last saving grace of this 2024 lineup, and I'll do another video talking about that, but if we don't get a Pokemon game this year, 2024's lineup is looking pretty bad. Now, this is, of course, before we get a potential April Nintendo Direct. That's what a lot of us are speculating at this point, so maybe that lineup becomes more clear in the coming weeks and months. But right now, with no Pokemon game announced, as we were all expecting, 2024 is looking pretty barren. And what's funny is I was actually already thinking immediately that there might still be a game releasing this year. I actually mentioned it in my discussion with Tucker from Backlog Banter. Go check out that video. That was yesterday's upload about Legends EA and how we're excited for it. But we got a new tweet from the Chinese Pokemon Riddler that is very suspicious. So we got a tweet from Joe Merrick, the owner of Cerebi, the popular Pokemon fan site. They tweeted out 2024 an off year then. Sweet. Basically just being happy, like, hey, we're gonna take some more time to get Legends EA and be as good as possible. But the Chinese Pokemon Riddler Q, tweeted out the thinking emoji, and maybe I'm reading way too much into this tweet, but that to me reads as this person who, as in the past, had very, very reliable leaks when it comes to the Pokemon franchise. That to me looks like them kind of being like, maybe it's not an off year. Joe, maybe we are getting a Pokemon game in 2024 still, but for some reason they just haven't announced it. So I guess the final major question here, the final piece of this puzzle, why didn't they announce it on Pokemon Day? If you remember in 2021, they announced BDSP and Legends Arceus on the same Pokemon Presents on Pokemon Day. And why wouldn't they do that again this year? If we're getting a similar kind of release strategy here where we get a Unova remake or a Johto remake, whatever it is, I would lean toward Unova, but who knows? We'll see what happens. If we're getting a Unova remake this year and then Legends EA early next, why not announce the 2024 game first? But with how weird this year is inevitably going to be for the Switch, especially if the Switch 2 was truly delayed internally to next year, maybe the marketing strategy for all of these things is just kind of in flux, and Nintendo and the Pokemon Company are kind of working together to figure out how they want to message all of these different things, especially if backwards compatibility was going to be a big focus of the marketing this year when it comes to playing these Switch 1 games on the Switch 2. Maybe we get the Ilka remix of Unova announced in the April Nintendo Direct that we're expecting. We have seen in the past year that Pokemon isn't exclusive to Pokemon Presents anymore. We had the Pokemon DLC announced in the June Nintendo Direct, or at least it was shown in the June Nintendo Direct. The Teal Mask was, I believe, as well as I think the Indigo Disc popped up in the September Direct. So for a couple years there, Pokemon just was not popping up in Nintendo Directs, but that's not the case anymore. So maybe we could see a smaller scale remake of Unova or Johto announced in the Nintendo Direct. Or maybe we could get another Pokemon Presents in June. They normally do one over the summer. Maybe we get one in June or July that announces a remake for this holiday season. Maybe that's where we get a little bit more information about Legends ZA, and maybe they just wanted to have them be separate announcements. Maybe they didn't announce it alongside Legends ZA because they knew that Legends would just completely overshadow it. I mean, that's what happened in 2021. I know BDSP ended up selling better because, one, it's 2 games, 2, it's a remake, but Legends was the talk of the town, Legends Arceus, in 2021. Like, everybody was more hyped for that game that entire year. Maybe they didn't announce this remake here because they knew Legends ZA would just completely overshadow it. And what's funny is, almost all of the positivity surrounding this announcement, of course, people are excited about the idea of returning to Kalos in this new Legends game and the fact that the Legends sub-series is continuing at all, but a lot of the positivity right now is about the fact that Pokemon Company is seemingly skipping another year. So maybe this was all for good PR. They know the reception to BDSP, while the game sold very well, was negative. Maybe they just wanted to have these announcements be separate. Maybe they wanted to make the announcement of Black and White Remake feel a little bit more low-key, have it be a separate marketing beat throughout the year as to not bump heads with Legends ZA, which inevitably is going to be the much, much more exciting game. It also definitely depends on when Legends ZA is even releasing, because for Legends Arceus, they said early 2022, so I think a lot of us initially were thinking, well, maybe Legends ZA will release in the first half of 2025, and I do think that's more likely because they announced it this early, but they didn't say early 2025. They just said 2025. Now, that just might be the Pokemon Company kind of wising up, not putting a specific time frame on it, so that if it ends up not being quite ready for the first half of 2025, let's say January, February, maybe that's why they're doing that, because they want to be able to kind of have that wiggle room if they need to delay it deeper into 2025. But let's say it is January. Let's say it is releasing in January. At that point, they, I think, would just release it in November. So maybe there's something else releasing in November, and that's why Legends ZA is next year instead of this year. I don't know. I know it's like some crazy conspiracy theorist stuff going on right now, but I feel like there was so much leading up and kind of teasing remakes of either Unova or Johto this year. To just get Legends ZA feels weird. Like I said at the top, I'm fine with them taking the year off, but with the lack of Switch software this year currently announced, the lack of a Pokemon game is a huge blow to the Switch 2024 lineup. It would be very weird for them to take 2 years off in a row. They've never done that before. Like, I would not be shocked if there is some sort of remake announced in a more low-key fashion for holiday 2024. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Do you think I'm crazy, or do you think this is possible? Do you think we might end up seeing a new Pokemon remake announced for 2024? I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch and Pokemon news, discussion, speculation. I'll be doing a lot of videos on Legends ZA over the next year or so, so definitely subscribe for that. Of course, follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames. Join the Discord that is linked down below. And until next time, folks, peace!